And I remember my mom at that time being in Vegas, but calling me and saying, like, you do not need to have this baby. So somebody again telling me you need to have an abortion. I remember her sending money saying, like, you need to go, you do not need to have another kid, you just had one, you know, that kind of thing. And I remember being like, okay, fine. And then that was until, like I said, the doctor had told me like I was pregnant with twins, and I just knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. My name is Mimi Green, Memegren. So I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit, Michigan. Being born and raised in Detroit was tough. It was rough. You see a lot of dilapidated buildings, a lot of murder, a lot of crime. So I went through a lot as a kid all the way up until adult until I moved away. So it was tough. Is the streets of the east side is no joke. It's either killed or be killed. So it's like you have to have this like exterior of toughness, because if you show a sign of weakness or anything, like you'll be done. So you gotta come strong. You gotta come tough, because if you don't, then you would just be thrown to the wolves. So it's real. The life there is real, and what you see is almost like a war on a daily basis. So trauma really has me kind of blurry as the early stages of my childhood. Some of that is a little fuzzy, but what I do know is like I almost was born into trauma. My father was murdered when I was 2. So everything up until I was around 7 is sketchy. And then when I was around 7, my mother went to prison, and I can vividly remember the day that they bust into our house. And I was there with my aunt, my cousin, and my sister. And they raided our house, went through everything, and then life as I knew it just changed from that day forward. It was never the same.
What we have here with Miss Green is a very real-time look into a intergenerational mommy trauma, vicarious trauma, kind of passed down, that fight, flight, freeze system passed down from one generation into the next. Mimi references this so vividly when she says, I was born into trauma. And this is said with a feeling of normalcy, which already lets you know that mommy trauma is very real.
So my childhood, walking to school, I think I walked to school maybe once, because my mother was a big time drug dealer. So she kind of had raps on us before she went to prison. My mama always kept a nice car. So whether we was being dropped off in the Benz, her boyfriend had a limo. Back then it was major, so I would get dropped off in a limousine. I was the only kid getting dropped off in a limousine. And I remember a girl, and I can't remember her name, but I do remember she would bully me and make fun of me and all this stuff, and then she tried to fight me. And basically it was jealousy, but I didn't know back then, so I was always embarrassed, like, can you please not drop me off again in a limo? Please, you know, I just want to be regular. But my mama was extra. She was extra, so that wasn't happening. But my mama, she dressed us in minks. I got pictures of me in little minks and gold rope chains. And, you know, I had the flip hair. My mama did too. You know, back then it was the 80s, so it was the time. And she was trooped down, MCM this, you know, that, you know. So we stayed fly. But like I said, it was just different because everybody else was looking at you like, who you think you are? I remember going to my grandmother's house, my grandmother Emma, and she was kind of telling me, like, oh, your mother was around some bad people, and they caught her at McDonald's, and so she went to jail, but it was the other people that she was hanging around. So the day our house got raided, I remember being in the back room with my sister. And we was watching cartoons. And like I said, my sister, she was little. She was a baby, but I was watching her. And my aunt and my cousin was kind of in the front room. And I just remember boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, what is going on? So I remember calling from my auntie, like, TT. And then I came to the front. And by the time I came to the front, that's when they were busting in. And I just seen guns and all this stuff. And I'm like, still in my head, like, what's going on? Because I ain't never really seen cops or, you know, agents or anything like that, but on TV. So I'm like, what? Still, and then my aunt's like screaming, like, sit down. So I remember them going through our house. We had like all these video games throughout the house and in the basement, and then they were playing video games. They was going through my mom's stash where her money was. You know, opening stuff that she had, like, by her bar, like, really going through our house. And then I remember them telling my aunt, like, they had to check my sister's diaper, make sure it wasn't any crack in there. And I remember them taking us into another room and then, like, kind of patting us down, make sure we didn't have anything on us. And then that's when they took us away from my aunt and my cousin. And it just was like, still, what's going on? But I'm kind of lost. But then I'm scared. I'm scared too.
And then did you see your mother get taken away?
She wasn't there. Her and two other guys that she was dealing with, they were supposed to meet up with somebody and do a deal. And so they met at the McDonald's, but really they were setting them up. They had been watching them. So that's how she got busted. So she was already taken into custody by the time they raided our house. Then I remember it was some time, and I can't remember how much, but I know it was a time that all of a sudden my mother had came home, but she was released on bond. And so during that time, we had kind of like spent time together. She still hadn't told me what happened. I was still kind of lost, didn't know what was going on to the full extent. But I remember she spending time with us and saying, hey, we're going to go to an amusement park. We're going to do this because mommy has to go away for a while. Still couldn't really comprehend what that meant. So we were trying to do everything within a short period of time, go to the amusement park, go to movies and all this different stuff. And my sister, she was a baby. She was a baby then, so I was still old enough to remember. And I remember my mother vividly that day that she was going to turn herself in. And I remember it just being like, okay, I'm leaving. It wasn't how long or what, but you're going to stay with your grandmother. So the day that she left, I just don't remember having really much emotions. But I do remember just being like, she's gone. She's gone. And here I am with my grandmother. And after that, we were just with my grandmother until she got cancer. And then after that, that's when the real shift happened. And then that's when I went from aunts and uncles and all these different people. And that happened for some years. And I experienced trauma during that time, being molested, going all these different places. And then finally, almost like the last stop was being with my mother's boyfriend, the one who had the limo, and being there. And I met his mother, and her name was Emma, ironically. So I get there and she treats me like her granddaughter, like we're blood, like she known me all my life. And so by that time I'm in middle school And so it feels comfortable for me. I like being there. But I remember while being there, I was sexually abused by somebody else in the house. And I remember keeping all that in and not telling anybody, but I wanted to be at Emma's house because that was the best spot of being normal, like that I could think of, being in school. So we would cook together. She would, take me to Gantos, get dresses, and all this stuff. And so I stayed with her for a few years through my middle school. And then by the time I was like in the 9th grade or going into the 9th grade, I moved with my uncle. And then that's when I became an adult. So I started dating an older guy. I lied about my age. He was in high school. I was getting ready to go in high school, but he was getting ready to graduate. So he was like a big time dope boy in the area or whatever. And so he really clung to me and he protected me. And so I think I really got attached to that of being like having a protector. I didn't have a dad. I had stepfathers in and out or whatever you want to call them, seat fillers or whoever. But he was like my rock. He was almost like a father. So he protected me. I remember getting into it with some girls and he came to my rescue and he always carried a gun. Like people feared him in the neighborhood. So again, I became really attached to him. And so while living with my uncle, like I said, I was just wild. I was in the streets. I remember by this time I'm in the 9th grade and I got pregnant. And I remember telling Emma, and she was like, what? Like, cause she didn't play that. Like she was loving and all that stuff, but she didn't play. Like you didn't mess with her. And so she immediately made the decision for me, like, you are not having this baby. You are too young. I didn't have a say so. I really still didn't even feel the weight of what was really going on. And so she was like, you have an abortion. You're having an abortion. That's it. That's that. She made the appointment. I remember the day going in and it just being like a blur and not even understanding like, wow, I'm a mom. Like I didn't even get that. Like it wasn't even registering in my young head that, you carrying a baby. And I just remember being in the back room and being like, wow, like I wonder, is it a girl? Is it a boy? And I'm trying to like talk to the doctors and they're like, look, don't worry about it. We're about to do this procedure. Before you know it, you'll be waking up in a recovery room. And it was just like that, like routine to them, like bam, 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 this is it. So I remember waking up in a recovery room and Emma coming to pick me up and that was it. That was it. And I was no longer a mom then. It was like I was right back in the streets. Like it didn't really slow me down. Like I speeded up and I was like a monster. Trauma had me doing all kind of stuff. I was, dealing with other guys because like I said, the guy I was dating, he was in the streets, you know what comes with that too. So I was just hurting and I was hurting everybody that was around me, and my mom would call me on the phone and try to discipline me and I'd be like, girl, what? Like, you can't tell me what to do. Like, you all the way in there. What you gonna do? And it wasn't until around the 10th grade, that's when my mom had got out. And she had got out and she got back with her boyfriend, who owned the limousine company. And I remember her coming to my uncle's house and she came and she was dripped up and floor length mink, like she hadn't missed a beat, right? And I'm thinking like, girl, you ain't even been here. Like I ain't, really? You show up like this? So I remember her showing up and them picking me up like they were saving me. And we didn't really have a conversation about, how I felt, since she's been gone, what's going on. It was like, hey, we moving to Harper Woods. And Harper Woods is like a real nice suburb outside of Detroit. Very affluent area, not many black people at that time. So, again, it was big time. One thing about my mom, she always kind of showed me something different as far as like material stuff. Like she always was that girl. She always had the next best thing. So I remember growing up in Harper Woods and then going to school called Grosse Pointe North, and I was like the only, like 1 out of 3 black people there, and the kids were showing up, and they were, they were rich. They was rich, and I just felt so out of place. I felt out of place. I didn't want to be there. I didn't really want to be disciplined with my mom. Didn't really want to be around her because we didn't have a connection. So many years had passed, and I just felt like I'm grown. Even though I wasn't, I felt like I'm grown. Like, what you gonna tell me? What you gonna teach me? So I'm like, the streets done taught me all I need to know. So we were disconnected. And I know that probably hurt her because she had missed so much time. And so I stayed with her for a while. And then I believe around the time I was in the 11th grade, she got caught with a gun. She got caught with a gun because she felt like she needed to carry one because it's just how it was, there in the city. Like, you needed to have some protection. So she got caught with a gun. Of course, she was a felon. So she was going to court with that. So we still didn't have conversations about what that looked like, what was going on. It was kind of hush-hush. Then I remember by this time I'm in the 12th grade, and I didn't even know that she was supposed to be in a halfway house. Kind of like doing work release. I didn't even know it because she didn't talk about it. Didn't say anything. And then I remember one day when I was in 12th grade and I was part of the bowling committee, and my sister's dad had paged me because back then we had beepers. And he's like, 911, blowing me up. And I'm like, what does he want? So I go to the payphone at the bowling alley and I call, and he's like, come to the house. I'm like, okay, like what? So I get to the house. And I'm like, what's going on? Because he really wasn't, around like that. I'm like, what's going on? So he's like, my mom had left me a letter, explaining what happened, but they had found her and they had picked her up. So by that time, I really was like, deuces, like, cool, you gone again? All right, that's all right with me. And I remember that's when I really was like full beast mode. Like, I'm taking care of myself. Like, at this point, I don't want to be disappointed no more. I don't want to deal with the abandonment. Like, I'm on my own, and I'm going to take care of my sister. Like, I'm going to make sure she good no matter what. And so having that happen, my mom, still kind of calling, we went to visit her sometimes, and talking to her through the glass at that point was really like, I'm not even trying to come back up here. Like, I done did this for years, coming up here with somebody else. Now I'm driving myself up here. I'm like, no, I'm not even trying to do that. I'm good. The last incident where my mother had went to back to prison for the gun charge, after she had got out, we were still in Detroit, but she wanted to change. My cousin and my aunt had moved to Las Vegas. And my mother was like, I can't stay here. I gotta go. The city is not right. And so by the time I had graduated high school, and she was like, do you want to come? And I was like, no, I'm not going. Like, I'm staying here. Like, this is my home. And so her and my sister left. They left. My sister was still young. And so by that time, I had a boyfriend. And then I moved in with him. And then we got our apartment or whatever. And so we were living together. And I remember my mother saying, at least come visit. So I remember visiting Vegas, and we're flying over. And this is my first time on an airplane. We're flying over, and I see all these lights. It's bright. It's shiny. I'm like, what? Like, oh my God, because back in the city, it's almost like a little dark cloud over the city at times. And so to see all these bright lights, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, there's another world outside of Detroit. So we get there. I'm like, first of all, it's hot. Okay. I'm like, okay, it's hot. That's number one. But I'm like, it's so pretty. Like, the air just felt different. It it was like everybody smiling, you know, like the city is lit and it just glowing. And so I was like, man, like this is something I really want to experience again. And I lived with, at the time, my boyfriend's family, and just stayed there for a few years. And then we were kind of not getting along because I wanted to be married. I just wanted something different. I always knew I wanted something different from what I had seen. That was just always in me. And I was always like that girl. And I was like, well, the next person I get with, I'm gonna be married. So I remember telling, you know, my boyfriend, like, I'm leaving, I'm done, I want to be married. And so I immediately connected with somebody else. Immediately, didn't really know him, connected with him. And I think a week into knowing him, he gets locked up. He gets locked up. He tells me that he was on probation, violated probation. And then here I am in ride or die mode again. I'm gonna wait for you, you know, I'm gonna ride for you, you know, so I wait on him. He only did a short amount of time. And then when he got out, I was like, okay, we're going to be together. We're going to get a house, you know, and if you want to be with me, we got to get married. You know, so we did all this little deal. And then we ended up getting married. I didn't even really know him. He didn't really know me, but I just knew that it was that attention again. It was that felt protection again. And so we got together, got married. It was ugly. It was ugly. It was rough. He was so jealous and he wasn't where he wanted to be in life. So he always made me feel bad about the things that I was doing. And so I remember the first time I had got pregnant with his child. And then he started accusing me of cheating, which was just crazy because I was in the house all the time. It was just school in the house. And then I remember the day that he came in, he was drunk, and he kind of like pulled me by my hair. Dragged me down the steps, was trying to fight me. And then I remember running to a neighbor's house and calling the police. Called the police. And I remember going to the hospital, and they were like, social worker came in, and they're like, we want to take a report. We need to know what happened. This is a domestic violence situation. And me being who I was, and I was always like a fighter too and tough. And I'm like, domestic violence? Like, what? Like, no, like that didn't happen. Like, no, it was a fight, but it wasn't, you know? And it really just had me in a spot like, well, what's going on? Like, this don't make sense to me. And so I remember having that moment and just being just kind of spaced out, but then eventually going back. Finally, I was like, I need to get away. But then in the sense of saying I'm gonna get away, I thought a change of environment would be good for him too. So in me leaving, I take the issue with me. So he comes to Vegas with me, and I'm thinking, change the environment, he gonna be different, you know, that kind of thing. And we get there, and Leprechaun changes spots. He's the same old person. And so we get there, still doing the same thing. And then I remember he gets a little job at McDonald's in like a gas station, but he's still like jealous, very jealous. Because immediately I got a job there, I was gone. Because I'm a hustle, you know, I'm make sure my kids are good, like all that. So he could never be on the same wavelength, but I never made it like that, but he did. So I remember one day he didn't come home, and then finally he comes home late. He's been gambling, but he didn't gamble his whole check. So I'm like, okay, this we can't do this. I'm thinking in my mind. So I'm like, God, look, like I feel like I need him, but I'm not strong enough to leave. So if it ain't right, remove him, like please. And so I remember the next day leaving with my aunt, and I was out and about, and I get a phone call, and it's from an unknown number. And I'm like, normally don't answer, but something was like answer. So I answer, and they're like, oh, this is the Las Vegas Police Department. We're at your condo. We have your kids. So immediately I thought something happened to my kids. So we rush back to the apartment, get there, and then my husband at the time is in the back of the police car. And I'm like, what? And so I'm up at the police car and I'm asking him what happened. He like, what they say happened? Like, that's what happened. And I'm like, what? So I asked police officer what happened, but he ended up stealing some money from work, but then he also was still on parole. So then we were done.
So Mimi references taking the problem from Detroit to LA. She gives us a very real-time look into what we describe in the therapeutic world as an inescapable shock. Here she is looking for a way out, and she finds a way out and asks the very thing that she needs a way out from to come with her. We see this when a person is exposed so much to the terror of their situation or the event that they're encountering, that when a very viable option or an escape plan is readily available, they don't take it. They don't even try. When it comes to trauma and domestic violence, you can see where she is stuck in her very fight or flight system. Anytime the sensations surface where she would be triggered or her alarm system would turn on, it would cause her to react in the same manners. In this case, kind of avoiding the fight and being in denial.
At this point, I'm an adult, living in Vegas, kind of really doing my thing, really solidified my name in Vegas. You know, I'm a well-known therapist, have an agency there. And I get a call and I hear you have a free call from the Las Vegas Detention Center. And then I hear my mom's name. And I'm like, what? So I accept the call and my mom, she's like going on. And she's like, I got arrested. They're claiming that, you know, some neglect with some of my houses. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just not making sense, right? And so I felt like it was just sketchy with some areas, but I'm still like, how is it that she's arrested at this point, right? And so I remember getting off the phone with her. And as soon as I got off the phone, I Googled her name. And when I say she was on every news station, newspaper that you can think of all over Nevada, felt like. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening again. And it's everywhere. So now I'm at this point like, is this story real? You know, because they're saying like there's some neglect with some homes that she have. And I'm like, is the story real? What's going on? Did anybody see it? Because that's my first thing. Because now I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling like that little girl again who never told people that her mother was in prison. So I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm like, do my clients know? I mean, it just was like crazy thoughts going. Like, are people going to attach me to her? What are they going to think? You know, they know this is my mom. And so I remember talking to my sister about it. And my sister at this point is living in Atlanta. So she's not even there. So I'm there having to like deal with it, feeling like on my own. And so I'm just scrambling, trying to make sure like my name is protected and I'm not associated with what's going on. And I remember trying to hide it. And then I remember one of my twins had got my phone. You know how kids do. Let me see your phone. So she takes my phone and I accidentally had one of the articles up. Grabbed the phone really quick, thinking I'm doing something. And so when I grabbed the phone, I'm thinking she didn't see it. You know, I got the phone or whatever. And then later on, some days later, I remember having a conversation with my kids. And then one of them said, oh, I know Nana's in jail. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you know that? You know, where did that come from? And he was like, oh, you know, one of the twins had told him. And I was just like devastated. And it was almost like I had to play two roles. And I had to kind of put on a face. Like I didn't just leave from down the street from visiting my mother in jail. You know, I'm going to this women's empowerment brunch. I got to look together. You know, I got to put a face on. And so I get there and I'm thinking, you know, I'm just going to kind of be there. And I remember being presented with like Woman of the Community Award or something. And I just remember bawling. Because I'm like, y'all don't even have an idea what I just went through. One, to get here, and I'm showing up with a face, but yet I'm still being recognized. So I remember just being like, okay, Lord, I need to step back. I need to step back because this is killing me and it's just too much. And then I think it was probably like a week or two later, I had got an email from BET. And I remember being like, oh, this is fake. Like, this is like, I'm going through a lot. Now, y'all really trying me now, And so I remember, and they were like, we found your nonprofit, Emma's House Inc. We really want to highlight you. We're going to highlight you on the Soul Train Awards. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Before we go, we have the founders of Emma's House, a Las Vegas youth empowerment nonprofit, and the Metcalf family, who won tickets to tonight's show for their work in the community. What they don't know is Walmart is dropping another surprise on you.
Oh, yes. To give them a head start on their Black Friday shopping, Walmart is giving them a gift card for $2,500. Congratulations. Yeah! Oh, hallelujah! Yes, sir.
Here it is, God put me in the forefront. Like, you ain't even got to hide, I got you. Like, no matter what people talking about you, what they saying, they gonna see you, they gonna know you, they gonna know that your heart is real, it's pure, and you gonna show up. Sometimes I try to sit and think, what was her story? Or, what was her background? Because she never really talked about, her childhood in a way. I just know that I think it was 14 of them. It was, so it was a lot of kids. And I imagine that my grandmother and grandfather couldn't give them a lot of attention. But I know that it was always like a lot of conflict because my aunts always felt like my mother was like the good child, the loved one. And so I really don't know her story, but it just seems like she probably lacked attention and needed to be loved some kind of way, because a lot of times she has like this attention-seeking spirit. And what's so crazy is that she's such a giver, such a doer, and would do anything for anybody. But then on the other hand, cut you deep. You really have to put yourself first. Again, it's not about the other person, it's about you. I had to learn that I had to feel, heal, and deal. And healing is messy. It don't always feel good. It ain't always comfortable, but it's necessary. Because either way, you'll be hurt. But at least if you heal, the outcome will be a little bit different. And if you get out your own way, beautiful things will happen. I swear I'm like the epitome of beauty from ashes. I've been through everything that you could possibly think of. But so much has happened because I had to get out my own way and really heal. Well, I always look at little Mimi as this kind, little loving girl. But then I also know enough now that when little Mimi shows up at times that she needs to be hugged, she needs love, she needs attention. But I also really put myself in check too, so to speak, because when I'm showing up, or I'm dealing with something with my husband, I'll be like, hold on, is this little Mimi or is this the adult showing up? Because sometimes I get in that place of feeling rejected or that abandonment wants to show up, and it could just be a text, not reply back quickly. And so that's me being like, okay, girl, who's showing up right now? And me really checking myself. So little Mimi still needs some love, some attention, but she's still that kind, sweet girl. She's still there, but that's my main motivation for really stepping up every day too, is to give back to her. And so I show up. I would tell little Mimi, you are enough, but keep going. Don't stop, even if you pause, but keep going. I think that's the biggest thing that I would tell her, and that you are loved. So at some point, really knowing that my worth, because again, I didn't really know that. And I know that comes from not having a father and then a mother being gone. Nobody really being your cheerleader. But I show up for her. I'm the biggest cheerleader. To love yourself as a mom, but also know that you have to be held accountable for the things that you have done. And just acknowledge that. We all make mistakes in life, but acknowledging when you do something wrong And that way that it can be corrected, and then you can kind of heal in the right way. But acknowledgement is the big thing for me. My advice to the woman that feels like she's hopeless is, if you give up today, you will never know what tomorrow's blessing may bring. I swear it feels like every time I'm at the end and I want to give up and I want to stop, that big blessing comes through. It's always like that. It feels like the attack is so strong, but it's something so major on the other side of that. But again, telling yourself, why not me? You've been through enough, so why would you keep beating yourself up? You deserve to be open to the blessings that God has for you. My faith is so big now because I done seen the ugly. And I know it's not me. So that's why my faith is so huge. So every time I go and I meet someone, I'm not Bible thumping you. I'm not doing all this, slapping scriptures across your head. Because the reality is, when you go through something and God pulls you out, that's when your real faith comes in, because you know it wasn't you. You know that it was somebody else holding you up. And so that's why I am so attached to him, because I've seen my ugliest days when other people didn't. The ugly snot cry in the room and all that, right? But nobody else seen it, but he was able to get me through it. So that's why my faith is solid. I don't know if I necessarily feel like she did the best that she could do. I understand forgiveness. I understand that comes in time, but I feel like it's gonna look a little different. And again, forgiveness for me doesn't mean that I hate you or wish you ill will, but I can't let you continuously hurt me. Because again, you have to heal and you have to deal with your stuff, just like I had to deal with my own trauma and stuff, so I could be a better mom for my kids. So again, it looks different for me. Doesn't mean I hate you, but it also means that this is my boundary and this is what is healthy for me and my family. And so my kids can be even healthier than me. I really hope that you find a place where you're able to heal, because when you heal, it helps me to heal and it helps us to be better. I wish we were close. I wish we had that relationship, but I need you to heal for you. I think that's it. So with Emma's House, our goal is to empower, inspire, and educate children. And so we just got these backpacks from one of the sorority sisters, Jennifer Brooks, who want backpacks filled with supplies. We have a ton of sanitizer, and the thing is, because since the pandemic has happened, a lot of people are not so blessed during this time to have the things that they need, the essentials. So we are blessed to be a blessing to others, and so I'm just grateful that we have people in the community that can come together with us to help bless these children. So this is what we're doing. And so it's loaded with all kinds of supplies for the kids, and so I'm excited to be able to gift them with the bags. So what we're going to do is that we're going to load up the backpacks, my team and I, and then we're going to take them to the local elementary, middle, and high school in Las Vegas. And then we're going to be able to gift them with the kids. So it's good to be able to do what we do. My husband loves me down, okay? Like, he is the one, like, babe, you got this, you can get it. And I'm a cheerleader too, because the one thing is that I think by me leaping so much, it increases his faith, because he's always like the show me person, like I gotta see it, and I'm like a leaper. I'm like, God told me, so you can keep it over there, because God told me what to do. And so when he see me leap and do that, he becomes a believer, because I'm like, God wouldn't have showed me this if it wasn't meant to be. And so when he showed me something, I do it, whether anybody agrees to it or not, is between me and him. To my kids, oh my God, I love you, love you. Thank you for being patient with me during my healing, during my trauma. Thank you for loving on me, being understanding. times when mama needs to have a minute and I need to go cry or whatever it is, but I thank you guys for supporting me, encouraging me, because they great. They even become little mini therapists themselves, but I appreciate you guys and I love you. I'm really the epitome of beauty from ashes. Like, I've been through hell and back. Like I said, everything that you can think of, every type of trauma, everything, but the fact that I didn't give up has really led me to this day to be able to be a marriage and family therapist, to be the founder and president of Emma's House, Inc., to be an author, to teach at the college, to be a wife. I'm the only one in my family that's married, the only one. Like, I am the generational curse breaker. I have 4 children. They are living, breathing, healthy, happy. And when they're not happy, we talk about it. We have open communication. Like, we're real. Stuff happens. I do stuff as a mom, but I own up to it. I talk to them about it. Tell me how you really feel about it, you know? And I want them to have that relationship with me, because it's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns. But what I do know is that if I keep going, that God's going to have so much more for me. I just keep showing up. Even when I'm afraid, I do it afraid. But I know that I am the beauty from ashes story.